I'm going to call the meeting of Middleton Plan Commission for February 14th, Valentine's Day, 2023 to order. And Abby, you don't
Yes.
call.
Bruce,
Here.
Harp,
Here.
Ramsey,
Here.
Schaefer,
Here.
Slavish.
Here.
Thank you. And Brar is present. Erdman Hermans is absent and excused.
Okay, so the next item is the approval of the minutes. This is the minutes for the Plan Commission minutes for January 10th, 2023. And I want to say thank you to Elder Dan Ramsey for chairing those meetings. And boy, it was so efficient. 17 minutes, that's a record, right?
Well, you know, we try to be efficient.
Such a great job. Let's give him a big hand right away. So,
Because we wasted 5 minutes, you know?
okay,
Nope.
need a motion to approve.
Motion Schaefer moves to approve.
And
Harp second.
okay, wow, boy, that's great. So any questions or comments? I went through those minutes, but I can't vote because I wasn't there. But all those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of January 10th, 2023, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So one abstention, so 5-1-0. So, okay, we are on to the agenda items. Item number 1, sign design review for Kairos Chiropractic 7475 Herbert Avenue. Daphne.
Yes, so for in our sign code for buildings that don't have any front setback, we do allow an additional sign. And so this sign will be going above the Traditions Women's Market. Those like vertical panels that you see like up here will be removed so that the letters can be flush against that main panel up top. And the applicant is here, so if you have any questions, I'm sure they can answer anything.
Well, you guys want to say anything? How did you come up with Kairos? That's pretty clever.
I feel like I could do a long story on Kairos, but
Yeah, and please come up to this microphone right here.
Yeah, come on, go ahead and, you both are welcome, so.
Names again, please.
I'm Jordan. This is Ethan. Married.
And this is how you celebrate the Valentine's Day, right?
Romantic Valentine's for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, new sign, a new
Yeah.
sign. Nothing says I love you.
Yeah, we've been putting in a lot of hard work up there, so it's been rewarding.
So I just have a question. There's going to be a sign on the door as well, right? Because
Yes.
people need to know how to get up to.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's just going to be a regular.
Yeah, it'll probably just be like on those glass doors. We usually don't review too many of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since we're on the second floor and our like main entrance is actually like buried within the building,
Mhm.
it'd be nice to have like something outside of.
Yeah, but it is at the doorway between the two stores. Is that where the?
We do have this stairwell on that
Right there,
far
yeah.
right,
Oh,
not that one.
Oh,
Yep,
in the
over
far-
here.
over
Yep.
there, okay, yeah.
which I am not sure we're gonna actually use as the main entrance for patients,
Okay.
because on the other side of the building is like a better staircase and the
Pardon.
elevator. So
Yep.
that's more of like a main
Yep,
entrance
and
type.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Above the mustard place. right?
Yes. the
Yeah.
mustard, yeah.
So Jordan, how would people know how to go upstairs there or they will, I don't know, there are independent stairs just going to your, this particular place?
Yeah, so that back entrance, like the foyer they have like plaques that have the businesses within.
Oh, okay.
I'll have instructions on my website and with current patients
It's over by the fountain where the.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
by the diner.
Mhm.
okay. Okay.
So it should be pretty clear.
Well, any questions for, I guess we need some, you guys seem happy and I don't think we have issues with the sign. So, okay, any other questions or comments? Otherwise, do you guys have more to say? You're happy? Okay. All those in favor of the motion to approve the sign design review for Kairos Chiropractic
I don't think we
74.
have a motion.
I thought you did. All right, let's have a motion then.
That was for the minutes.
Okay, anybody ready to make a motion?
Bruce will move approval.
Okay, I will go ahead and second it. Any more questions or comments? Okay, now all those in favor of the motion to approve the sign design review for Kairos Chiropractic, 7475 Hubbard Avenue, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Well, go ahead and get it done. So I hope I keep stay in good shape. So. Okay, all right. Now we are on to the big item of the day. This is item number 2. Request for rezoning from agricultural to planned development district general implementation plan PDD GIP for Red Tail Ridge Acre Farm Development. And Mark, you got the field today.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start by saying we received some additional communications from the public, and we added those to the packet. There were 4 additional communications since the packet was published. The hearing for this application was held on November 22nd of last year, and the public still has the option of speaking at the Common Council meeting, but tonight we're not taking any verbal input, other than if the applicant has any remarks. With that said, I just wanted to provide a quick overview of the application and our staff review. As we mentioned in the planning staff report, we feel this supports numerous goals. This project supports numerous goals of the city's comprehensive plan, including those listed on page 5 of the applicant's GIP submittal. We also feel this is consistent with the intergovernmental agreement with the town of Springfield, which was approved in 2004. I wanted to call out a couple things from that agreement. The predominant share of population growth in this part of the county can best be accommodated in higher density residential subdivisions served by a full range of municipal services provided by the city. And this accomplishes that. Area A, which is, can you pull up that agreement, please? Thank you. So what Daphne has on the screen here, in blue, you see Area A, and in dark blue is the outline of the Red Tail Ridge development site. And this material she prepared this for the Central Urban Service Area Amendment that is before the Capital Area Regional Planning Commission right now. They had their hearing on that request last Thursday, and we'll make a decision we anticipate in March. So Area A within that intergovernmental agreement with the town of Springfield is intended to predominantly have residential uses, but having some neighborhoods supporting commercial development near High Road will help reduce the need for residents to leave the neighborhood to access urban services. So we are supportive of that component of the project as well. We also are proposing or recommending as part of any motion to approve, we are recommending the addition of a perpetual deed restriction over all lots regarding Wisconsin's right to farm law. The reason for that is because the intergovernmental agreement with Springfield stipulated that that would be done with development in Area A. We also are recommending the addition of language pertaining to the plat pertaining to the existence of an airport within 2 miles of the plat. I also wanted to touch on the complete streets policy for the city. I didn't really get into this in the staff report, but as you'll recall, the council adopted a complete streets policy last fall. The vision and intent section of that policy emphasizes the importance of having a connected multimodal transportation network. If you can pull that up, please. It's okay. I can just read from it. I'm ready to go.
Okay, yeah.
So that was the first part of the policy. The third policy talked about complete streets principles should be incorporated into all public rights of way improvements and project phases. And the sixth component of that policy spoke to the design being in accordance with best practices and guidelines across the country. It's fine. I don't need to have it up on the screen now. And then lastly, I wanted to point out that in the 2000s, the council weighed in on the preferred design of Pheasant Branch Road, So what you see today with the road, the width of the road is what the council 15 to 20 years ago stated they like to see as the long-term cross section. Both High Road and Pheasant Branch Road are functionally classified as either current in the case of High Road or future collector street in the case of Pheasant Branch Road. South of Whittlesey Road, the intersection with Whittlesey and Pheasant Branch, that's currently classified as a collector already. And that's really all well, the other thing I wanted to mention is, and I called this out in the staff report, are the revisions to the general implementation plan and the preliminary plat that were made by the developers subsequent to the feedback that they received from the commission in November. I'm not going to go through those now. I just wanted to point those out. I think they're on page 7 or 8, something like that in the staff report. So the main issues that we see that we've been working on with the developer are the private alleys. There are some of the private alleys that they are willing to designate as private streets instead. And we felt that that was important because of because some of those alleys, some of the lots, the cottage condos are served exclusively by alleys. And so we wanted to see a 2-lane private street serving at least those alleys that directly serve those condos. Also, an issue that has been a source of debate among city staff, specifically our colleagues in engineering, is the names of some of the streets as well as the overall name of the plat. Planning staff support giving the plat the name Red Tail Ridge. Our EMS director has also said that he doesn't have a concern with that. There is another development called Red Tail Acres that's fairly small. It's located by Orchids by the Acres, but we don't feel that will cause, they're separate enough, and we feel that won't cause confusion for people because most people just refer to streets when they give out addresses instead of the subdivision. The names of the streets, I touched on that in the staff report. The TIA, the traffic impact analysis, is underway, and we expect that to be available in mid-April. And that would go for review by the Public Works Committee. And any findings of that TIA would be at the developer's expense to address any of the issues that come up, if there are any issues that come up regarding the existing street network. You'll recall that that was a source of concern from residents along, in particular, Old Creek Road, and that was reiterated in their comments that are in the packet today. And then the last comment is, you can stay on that screen, please. One of the main issues that's been raised is whether there should be public road connections to Pheasant Branch Road. As you can see on the screen, there are 2 connections, one at the upper end of the northern end of the project, and then one towards the bottom, southeast end. We feel that those connections are important to have a grid, just like Pheasant Branch Ridge subdivision and the Middleton Hills have connections with Pheasant Branch Road. It's important for neighborhoods in the interest of promoting connectivity and circulation and first responders, response from emergency providers, or you know what I mean, first responders, we'll say. We don't want anyone providing an emergency. So we feel it's important to have these connections. That's my overview, and I think the developer may have had some things they wanted to say as well.
Sure. Go ahead, Jack.
Mark, thank you. You took most of my comments, so I don't have to spend a lot of time making more. As we continue to work with staff and make the project better, as Mark pointed out, we did convert one proposed alley into a street. And I don't know, if Mark, if you can point that out, or something new plan today. And that's the now road to the east of the commercial area, that north-south road right there is now a street instead of an alley. We also turned 2 of the private alleys into private streets. They're the crescent-shaped ones on the south side of the North Cottage project and also on the south side of the South Cottage project. And that was a good suggestion to increase access to those areas. Yes, right in there, exactly. And added a temporary cul-de-sac down the bottom per engineering staff's request, but that's temporary. So that will be a connection to future neighborhoods. I believe we now have 7 connections to future neighborhoods. And we've also agreed to have the alley on the north side of the North Cottage agreement available to whoever builds in the future to use that alley as well. We'll get that in our deed restrictions so we can set up a plan for using that, because that helps the alignment of whatever road eventually attaches to Greenbrier. It fixes that problem. There could be alley lined houses along that alley in the future or something along those lines. So they've done a great job of anticipating future needs. It's been a long process, like they all are, to get here today. And I want to just say really quickly that your comp plan is excellent. The idea of missing middle housing is very important to me. And I kind of just want to let you guys know that I'm the right guy for this job. And I mean that sincerely, because that's where I like to make my living. And I like to provide quality homes for cops and teachers and all the people that we have to have around every day that do a great job. But it's hard for them to move into an owner occupied residence, especially in Middleton right now. Let's face it, there's not a lot of single family or attached owner occupied housing available to purchase in Middleton. You know, I raised my kids here, so I understand why people want to be here. It's a great place. With that, I just ask for your help to move this along. I think it's going to be a great project for the community as a whole. I think it'll be an example for other communities as we move ahead. Thank you. I'm available for questions. And Wade, my engineer, is also online, I believe. So if there's any technical questions, he's
Okay.
available to answer those as well.
Thank you, Chad. Well, we all spent a lot of time on this, so I did too. So one thing which I really like, there are 2 parks. Look at these, I think, and also like where they're located. So they look pretty good size, and I think that's really wonderful. And the second, which Chad mentioned too, they're going to addressing the missing middle. And so I think that's very important. So I have a question, Farah. In some places you say it's 128 acres and other places 126. So what is it? Is it 128 acres or 126? On page 5 is 126. Other places it's 128. Does anybody know?
I could have made a mistake. I would go by what the developer listed.
I thought it was 126.
126?
Thought that was what our CARP-C
Okay,
materials.
okay, all right, 126.
That's a lot of land to lose.
He's jumped around a lot for some reason, but Wade could answer that question for sure. He would know right away how many acres it actually is. I can't honestly remember all the different iterations, what it ended up at.
Okay, so,
We have in the legal notice has defined the perimeter.
okay,
So whatever that perimeter was established to be, as outlined as described in the legal notice, that's what would be rezoned.
okay.
I don't think the legal notice is in the packet this time.
Okay, so that's just whatever is in the legal notice, whether it's
Yeah.
126 or 128. Okay. So the other question was, you raised a question about the private alleys versus public streets. So Mark, could you say why and pluses and minuses of that?
Sure. This is actually a good map to look at. So both north of Bellefontaine Boulevard, which is the crescent shape as he described, you see the alleys shown in red and white dashes. And then also south of Bellefontaine, let's focus on the ones to the south. If you come in off of that north-south road, I'm going to highlight it. Thank you. So if you can see where I'm pointing, it's going to be a little hard to see. You see that where I'm pointing? So imagine that you live in one of these condos. They're individual cottages, but in a condo structure, ownership structure. If you were giving directions to a friend to come visit you, or more importantly, having a first responder needing to come to your property, our concern is that having to navigate 2 alleys. Alleys typically don't have a street sign. They typically are treated as, oftentimes can be 1-lane roads like they are in Middleton Hills. And so we felt it was important to have this be labeled as a street, not unlike the one up in Misty Valley Lily Lane, which is just to the west here, that serves some condos. Conservancy Condos is a private street. The difference is this would then have alleys coming off of that private street, going north-south.
Okay.
The Greenway, if you, in the staff report, I had we went to go to the staff report on page, page was that, probably 6. I have a photo showing, an air photo showing a similar development in Madison, just south of Old Sauk Road there. That's perfect. So Old Sauk Road is on the northern end of this photo. Burnt Sienna Drive is the intersection to the west. The access is off of whatever that street is called, Peach something, I think. Peach Leaf Lane. So all the houses, or at least the ones that face the Greenway, the front doors face the Greenway, and that's obviously not a street. They are the parking for residents, for guests would be along Peachtree Lane, I presume, because there isn't really room in the alleys. That's actually something we should maybe ask the applicant, but residents then would access their property from the alleys that serve the garages. I think, Chad, you had talked about there being room for parking behind the garages. Is that?
There is room, in this case, there'll be 22-foot driveways roughly, so there's always room in the driveways. But as in the SIP, you will see off-site parking areas as well for guests. They don't show up on here because it's not that detailed, but we do accommodate cars. We don't encourage them, and we actually put condo restrictions in so that we don't have a family with 3 college kids still living at home. They each have a car, because this doesn't work in this neighborhood. So we try to. We don't like, for example, we won't finish a bedroom in a basement, because we're trying not to encourage large families living in small homes in areas that are compact and don't have a ton of room for cars.
So thanks, Chad. So they have, without any hesitation, responded to our concern and added converted those alleys to private streets, which then we felt addresses the addressing and public safety concern that we had.
So Chad, from your viewpoint, if you had the alleys, would that lower your cost, or is there a cost difference, or so the houses will be a little bit cheaper, or why would you want?
The difference between a private street and a private alley is not that big of a difference. And I think it's a good idea, because if you could envision that I could have address signs then on this private street, and the street has a name, it does make a lot of sense to have much more direct, reasonable access for first responders and for UPS men and, Pizza Hut. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I think it just cuts down on some confusion. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay, so you're happy with that?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Are the
Mayor?
numbers
Yep.
required on the back on the alley side of the houses?
We do also add them
I
to
don't know if
the,
that's legal, but
Yes.
yeah.
I was going to answer the question that you asked earlier. The development is 128.18 acres, including existing right-of-way. It's 125.88 acres excluding existing right-of-way.
Thank you. I forgot.
That's from the legal
Okay, so
description.
it's 128, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, we got that sorted out.
Mhm.
So Chad, just following up on those private streets. And those cottage homes, will the front doors of the cottage homes be facing the greenways?
the front porches face the greenways, but we also put a door on the garage side too, again, for first responder access. That we've done these neighborhoods in a couple of different locations, and we found that having a rear garage door, fire departments want that because they don't want to have to go through an overhead door or come around the front. They want to be able, if they have to enter the dwelling, they want a door to be able to break down, to say it roughly, I guess.
More questions for Chad or Mark or Abby?
Yeah, I guess I have a comment to Mark. I mean, you're talking about you want to have a sense of throughness with the roads and things in this development, but that seems at odds with what the city wants to do as declared with Pheasant Branch. And so it seems like you're saying it's important to have these roads dumping out on Pheasant Branch, but the city's decided they don't want Pheasant Branch to be the kind of road that follows. So where do we find the middle ground on it?
To clarify, Pheasant Branch Road when Middleton Hills was developed, Pheasant Branch was intentionally connected into the Middleton Hills at Frank Lloyd Wright by the grocery store. So that used to be Old Creek Road. I'm sure you go back, you
I know
remember that. And so that was the idea of connectivity. Gaylord Nelson Drive and Whittlesey Road, south of this subdivision, both connect with Pheasant Branch Road. Pheasant Branch Road is designed as a 2-lane road and can accommodate traffic. It's just not designed to have on-street parking, no bike lanes, and obviously we have
Needs
sidewalks.
to be a little rebuilt too.
Pardon me?
Needs to be a little rebuilt too, I think.
Well, but I think the concern from the council, if I remember right, from the 2000s was they just didn't want to see it widen to a 36-foot wide street with curb and gutter, which has some impacts on stormwater management and actually, especially the removal of a lot of mature trees.
Yeah. We
That was the
certainly heard a
concern.
lot of people, the public input talking about the concern.
Right.
About that this becomes a logical feeder out of this neighborhood. And suddenly you have the potential to dump 700-800 cars coming from it.
The thing is, if you go back to our intergovernmental agreement, please, no matter what neighborhood or what type of development takes place in area A, both this dark blue area south of it, and then especially north of it, Pheasant Branch Road borders it. And no matter what is built here, if it's just a suburban style car centric development, that would lead to even more traffic on Pheasant Branch Road. But to not have connections to Pheasant Branch would be like severing Whittlesey Road and Gaylord Nelson so that they couldn't access Pheasant Branch. And that would cause all the traffic to rely on High Road. And of course you have neighborhoods there too, and the school. So we feel from a best practices standpoint, it's better to distribute the traffic and have connectivity so that people aren't stuck in cul-de-sacs and can't get to their neighbors easily. Or to services.
To follow up on what Mark said, 2 additional points. One is one of the very first items of feedback that our staff gave to the developer was that we really wanted to see connections to the future growth area within the city to the south and to the north. So those were originally shown as cul-de-sacs, and we asked to preserve those future connections because in planning, we always want to try to protect the grid and limit cul-de-sacs where we can. Now, obviously, we're not proposing that all of these streets go out to Pheasant Branch because we know that there is a concern. But the other thing about this neighborhood is that it has really been carefully planned so that a majority of the density is on the High Road side. So most of the traffic is likely going to choose to use High Road because those apartments, that's where most of the people are going to live. And so they're proximate to High Road.
And then they'll have Bellefontaine to get west to Parmenter Street too.
Yeah, planning and having it happen are 2 different things, considerably different things. I mean, I understand both sides of this argument, the issue. I still am concerned, when you come down Pheasant Branch, right near where that lower road comes out, that's where people park and they go into the Conservancy and there's cars on both sides of the road, double parked and people walking across the street and people U-turning, and it's a very congested little spot where a bunch of people stop. And if I lived in this place, I don't care how you planned it. If I say worked at the university or something, I'd be cutting down the shortest distance I could be. And it would be that lower cutoff to that side.
Ironically, John, having that street, the one on the south, actually will provide more on-street parking capability for the Conservancy. So when people drive on Pheasant Branch Road and can't find parking at that county parking lot, then there's always this option to come up here. What we've seen though, Middleton Hills, there's a street right there called Gaylord Nelson. People still park along Pheasant Branch Road instead of going simply 1 block west.
The point is what you plan and what they do are not always the same.
Well, but there's ways to deal with that. We could put in curbs, we could put in signs, we could, and that hasn't been seen as a priority. And I would add that I'm sorry, Mayor, the 2 cul-de-sacs that Abby mentioned, the reason those are cul-de-sacs, as I understand it, is because of topography. Chad's nodding his head. So there's actually some hills there and some steep grades. Otherwise, frankly, especially both of them, probably fairly easily could have been connected to Pheasant Branch Road and provided lots. In fact, having them go all the way to Pheasant Branch is a more efficient development pattern. It's just the topography was such that it didn't allow it.
So Mark and Abby, sorry, you were not done that yet.
No, I raised my concern.
Okay.
I think it's a dilemma. I don't think it's easily resolvable, but it's certainly there still as an issue, and I don't think that the desires of one or the other are going to make either of it go away. I think it's in the future, it's going to be a problem spot. I just think so.
Thank you,
I'm
Brian.
done. Thank you.
So Mark and Abby, so this Kathy and Alan addressed these 3 points. So if you, I know you partly covered it, but if you want to do it, Abby, or want to do it, Mark? I mean,
I don't have the 3 points in front of me. Well,
Oh.
once you, it's in the packet on, you probably didn't.
Was
flag
it
that.
the?
Yeah, this is
input
page
section?
page 17 or 65. So page 26 of the packet.
Yeah, that first one. So you're talking about the 3 bullet points there?
Yeah. So mhm.
Has this modification been previously considered? If yes, why?
They're talking about the road on the top. That's
So what they're asking for is to not have access points between the development and Pheasant Branch Road. I feel like we've sufficiently covered that in our presentation tonight.
I think they're asking that you added a new one. They're asking 2 versus 1 when you go through the details. So they're asking about the one on the north, which was probably alley to begin with. So now it's a road.
No, well, that was that an alley originally, or was that
That was always a road.
I thought that was always a road
That
too.
was a road.
Yeah, the connections to Pheasant Branch are unchanged from what you saw in November. That's not been changed.
Okay.
Will you
So-
go back to the comments though? I'm not sure if that's what they're asking.
Maybe scroll up.
For just one of the 2.
Yeah. So they're trying to, they're advocating for not connecting the streets to Pheasant Branch Road.
But it's the southern connection, right? Not the northern one? or
Yeah,
is
they're
it-
asking for one of them to be connected, not the other.
Yeah.
Close up access.
The TIA that's coming anticipated in April, is that going to deal with this issue some?
Yeah, it will.
Might be better to save this discussion for.
Yeah, I
when
mean,
we get more data.
the TIA is going to study the effects on the existing street network and if there's any deleterious effects of the development on, for example, the operation of a traffic signal at High Road and Century. I'll just pick that as an example. Then the way we have handled these in the past is it's incumbent on the developer to fund to address the concerns to the engineer's satisfaction. So if that means there has to be some modifications at an intersection,
Yeah.
that's how it gets handled. The challenge, though, I guess what I want to emphasize again is this is our growth area that we've had in our comp plan and intergovernmental agreement for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so no matter how this area grows, we're going to have to deal with increased traffic. But what we are doing is trying to promote neighborhood oriented services to be developed in conjunction with the, instead of just strictly single family houses that all have 2 or 3 cars or more. So what we're trying to do is balance the needs of the housing needs of the community, provide missing middle housing, all in a way that doesn't increase traffic and protects, of course, there's the stormwater requirements, all that. We're trying to have a well-rounded community here. And we've learned a lot over the last 20 years. So we know we shouldn't just put in simple, single family, large housing. So I think the development concept itself is going to make this a better project than what might have been if it had just been a subdivision with just single family residences.
But let me say, I think the project is good. We've been through this many times and I'm strongly in favor of this. And I like the 2 parks and many things, but it's just literally the issue comes down to the conflict between the perception of what Pheasant Branch Road is or wants to be and what it's ultimately going to become, I think are 2 different things. And at some point, we're going to have to just reconcile. May mean we change the whole concept of Pheasant Branch. But to put it into a benign state and say that we can do this, nothing's going to change over time, I think is putting your head in the sand.
Well, the life isn't static. So
Yeah.
So did
But
we,
I'm, in favor of going ahead with this thing. I just think it'd be-
The wider roads lead to faster cars, faster traffic.
I know.
And so having the road designed the way it is, actually, I think is a wonderful thing
Yeah,
because
maybe good.
it's hard to, you feel like a scofflaw if you're going much over 25 miles an hour. So,
so the
I
other,
haven't seen too many scuffles.
so the other point they're asking is in the TIA, I'm sure the Public Works Committee considered whether the Pheasant Branch Road and Frank Lloyd Wright should be included. And they probably decided not to, or it is, or what is?
so they are studying both ends of Old Creek Road so the northern end at Pheasant Branch and the southern end at Century Avenue. And by studying that intersection that's before Frank Lloyd Wright, they will know how much traffic is. The traffic model will indicate what they anticipate for volumes that leave that intersection, and those volumes then automatically go to.
So it's
Right.
it's already there.
It's baked into the
Okay.
analysis. I mean, I understand, we advocated for that, but the engineer felt it wasn't necessary. I think
Okay,
it's
so
the
it
same
was
way.
considered.
They were aware that that's the concern yes, they were aware of the concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now city doesn't own the high road and city doesn't own the Pheasant Branch Road either. That part, it's a Springfield. Who owns it? The high road is town of Springfield,
Well,
right?
anything that's in the unincorporated area outside the city limits is in the town of Springfield. In the case, so High Road, quite a bit of that now is shared jurisdiction between the city of Middleton and the town of Springfield. In the case of Pheasant Branch Road, virtually all of that is in the town of Springfield. There's a tiny sliver in the town of Middleton. Actually, and the same goes for High Road at the southern end. It's literally just 100 or 200 feet. So basically, now that this has been annexed and as this develops, the city will have more frontage along Pheasant Branch Road. And so we will need to, I'm not sure what your question is, Mayor.
Yeah, my question is, we have to think long term. So I think, to handle this traffic, these roads well, at least High Road would have to be improved, right? So right now, even to fill the potholes, I remember our city, Springfield didn't pay any for this. And we were happy that city could at least, do it on their part too. So going forward, so when the traffic is more, so the roads have to be improved somehow. So what is our long-term plan for at least the High Road? Yeah, that's my question. So
Chad, maybe you can answer this. Where you're anticipating the frontage along High Road, I was assumed is your responsibility. And I think that was something I read somewhere that you would.
My side of the high road along
Right.
my property will have to be improved.
Yeah, as part of this project.
okay,
Right.
okay,
Doesn't answer your entire question, but.
okay. Well,
that's
then
my
that's
responsibility.
improved. Then we could ask the town of Springfield. Well, I don't know whether we could or couldn't. So.
Yeah, so the northern end of the project at High Road and the southern end, what you'll see there is High Road will be developed with an urban cross section. I presume that will be the Public Works Department's expectation. That's our standard design.
Okay, so Randy, you have questions?
Yeah, that's talking about the High Road and improvements on High Road. There was a discussion about a 10-foot path being extended along High Road. What,
Yeah.
Chad, can you tell us what the plan there is?
Nobody has talked to me about a 10-foot path on a high road.
I can explain that. So if you go south of Keneal Trail, that was just, if you can go back to that same. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. So on the bottom left where you see single family typical, the text there.
Yeah.
The word single family is over Keneal Trail, I think it's called. That path from Keneal Trail south on the east end of Pheasant Branch Road, there's a 10-foot wide path. That path was put in through an agreement between the city of Middleton and town of Springfield. By agreement, I don't necessarily mean a formal agreement, but it was with the consent of the town of Springfield. So we put that in, actually, I think Penny Klein, a former public lands manager,
Yeah.
put that in
Yeah.
because the residents who had moved to Misty Valley or Middleton Ridge did not have a safe way to travel along High Road to get to the city. So that path was put in lieu of a sidewalk because that was entirely town of Springfield on both sides of High Road, south of Keneal. So what I'm suggesting in the staff report is that that path be extended north to through alongside this development instead of a traditional sidewalk. But that's a detail that I was just flagging it as an idea, and that's, I think, something we can address as we go forward with the SIPs.
Okay,
That's really a public works.
does that answer your question? And
It does, yes.
more questions?
Just one more. The commercial component that's on Bellefontaine does not have exposure onto High Road. And just intuitively to me, it seems like we'd want that commercial component to grab some more visibility off of High Road. Could that be slid over to the west?
Two things, as we're developing that particular block right now, I think that'll change on their SIP. So the answer to your question is yes. I think it's an SIP question more than it is a PDD question, but we're on the same page, and access to High Road is also important because we're limited. We can't access on Bellefontaine at all.
Yeah.
So the orientation is going to have to shift a little bit, but this concept will be the same.
More questions, Trent? Mike Slavish. Any questions? Mike,
No questions, Mayor, at this point.
are you happy?
I am happy. Yes.
Okay, well, all right, so any other questions? So somebody's ready to make a motion then?
And I would note that if you go to the staff report, please, on page 2, we had a suggested motion for your consideration.
With all those 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9
I
conditions.
like a motion with 9 bullet points. I'll make that motion.
8 points.
Motion. with all
Okay, so that's
contingencies with
that's
that.
the motion. So suggested motion for the plan commission approval by the staff. Is there a second?
Slavish will second.
Wow, thank you, Mike Slavish.
That's how happy he is.
Okay, well, that's right. So,
Hey, he's almost drinks.
Chris, let's start with questions now. Your turn, right?
I don't have any questions. I think it looks great.
Anybody else have any questions? Elder Ramsey.
I like this development. So I have no questions at this point. Probably have some more at the SIP level.
Okay. I guess I did mark a lot of these things, but how about the resolution of the names? Is that sorted out or not yet?
I think that would be good to have your guidance on that specifically for our record, if you have any concerns, and maybe the developer can speak to the challenge in
Yes.
finding names.
Mike and Randy and Chris and John and Elder Ramsey, any concern about the names? You have some cute names to suggest.
You know, it's a development name, and ultimately it's street names and street addresses of the things that people want to use. Nobody puts a developer name in their addresses or anything. And I think the fire department's happy with it. I'm happy with it.
So Mark and Abby is fire department happy?
Mark, did you hear back from Aaron?
Not directly. We are going to the Public Safety Committee on Thursday with a proposal to modify, or I should say relax a bit, what is a pretty stringent city policy on street naming.
Mhm.
They basically have the policy that anything in the Madison area that has any part of that we can't choose street names that are replicated in any form, any portion of those. So I'm sorry, I'm not speaking very clearly tonight. So this peach, what's the one that you talked about? Peach Leaf Lane. So that means you couldn't name something with peach or leaf. You know, that's the policy. And what's happened in Madison is there's a lot of double names now. Like, I think I saw something out there that's like White Ivory or Ivory Dove Lane, as if they can't decide which soap to go with.
Plus you see Pioneer Court,
Yeah,
Pioneer Lane.
So
You know.
we're running out, an urban area of over 500,000 people is running out of names. So our proposal is to limit our policy so that it's anything in our zip code and adjoining zip codes that where our first responders provide services.
Makes more sense.
And so I mean, that's, I guess, and Chad, maybe you can speak to your challenge. You're trying to do a
Well,
theme, I know.
I can give you a quick, but I think it's funny anecdote. On the screen you showed before on Peachtree Lane, the intersecting road's called Burn Sienna Drive. That's become a major north-south corridor in Madison right now. And she picked that name out of a box of 64 crayons, just because that's how difficult it is to find names that work. The original landowner, his nickname was Bird. So Bird Acre was the farmer for the last literally 104 years. And so we decided to try and pay some homage to the family by using bird names in our streets. And that's where Red Tail Ridge came from.
Nice.
You know, some of these neighborhood names get a little funny. That's, it's kind of a shot in the dark, but that one stuck. And that's why we're kind of sticking to our guns and want it because as you see, the street names are all birds. It works. And
Almost down to Whippet Way.
no, we're not.
All that's left.
Nobody can pronounce that.
I'm really touched to hear that. I knew it was a bird theme. I just assumed because of the conservancy, but yes, of course, Bird Acre. I mean, that was the guy who drove the tractors in the parade until he was 100 years old.
Oh, that is the same
That's
guy.
the same guy.
Okay.
That's why I'm
okay.
really moved to hear that.
All right.
All right, good. Go for it.
Well, did he like cranberries? Otherwise, if somebody has a problem with peach, Wisconsin.
Be glad you're not in the pharmaceutical business. Buying a doll and
Everybody should be glad I'm not in the pharmaceutical business.
So Mark, do we need to do anything here about this section 8.11? Or is that out of our hands anyways?
Are you talking about the motion? Or, yeah, that's in the staff
It
report.
was in the staff report.
I was basically, let me just see what we are suggesting in the motion. I don't think I actually,
I mean, this is a rezoning motion, so this is.
yeah. Oh, here it is.
It might be on the plat recommendation.
Yeah, I thought I had addressed it somewhere.
Resolution of the name.
Oh, yeah, that's under plat. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to talk about, let's save that for the next item then.
Okay, so I did have a conversation with Chad. I like, and all people should be treated equally as much as possible. So I was thinking about having a learning center or some place in a community center. I don't worry too much about fees and things, but I think we have a library which is right in this part of the city, and this is a huge development there. And I would just like the kids to be able to go to a place where there's a books or computers or whatever games. So in any case, he's open to that suggestion. He will talk to the staff or things. But I think we have to. I know I have talked to Abby that where there are apartments, we should probably need to change an ordinance that we should have some learning center there because people who live in apartments, their kids have the same rights as those live in homes. Even those live on a big, tall home on the corner of South and Middleton Street. So I think, so I think, we have to be really cognizant of people who don't have it. So I think in any case, so Chad will consider this. Any other questions or comments? Well, otherwise, all those in favor of this huge motion to approve the request for rezoning from agricultural to planned development district general implementation plan for Red Tail Ridge Acre Farm development with all the suggested 8 conditions in this staff memo, say aye.
Aye.
I did hear aye, Mike, right? Aye.
Yes, you did, Mayor. Aye.
So everybody, it's
Aye, aye,
unanimous. So I'm sure the Edmund Herman, she misses it. So otherwise he would be too. All right. We are on to the item number 3 here. This is preliminary plat, Red Tail Ridge Acre Farm Development between High Road and Pheasant Branch Road, preliminary plat. So this is Mark.
Yeah, so the important point to note here is that we have a time limit for acting on the preliminary plat. That time limit expired, but before it expired, the developer gave us an extension, not once, but twice. So now the
Did
extension
you
is
say
through.
thank you? Thank you,
Yes.
Chad. And
Otherwise, we would have been in the position of, without having gone through all the issues, we would have been recommending denial. But at this point, based on their responsiveness to staff concerns, we are, as planning staff, recommending approval of the preliminary plat. This doesn't necessarily have to go to the council, but we are recommending it goes to the common council. It's what we've done in the past. And when there's differences of opinion between committees, it's a good place to resolve that at the council. So
It's not a trivial project.
yeah. So we have a motion. If Daphne could put that on the screen, please. We are recommending a motion with a number of bullet points. So that should make Commissioner Schaefer really happy too. 6 bullet points in this case. One is the deed restriction that I mentioned earlier regarding the right to farm law, and also the placement of notes on the final plat indicating the presence of the general aviation airport nearby, as well as the alley and street extending along the northern edges of the plat may serve adjoining lots in the future. That's something that the developer mentioned earlier, that they were amenable to that. The third bullet is the Planning Commission determining the appropriate park fees for the development. It's standard procedure. City engineer approval of a comprehensive stormwater management plan, also standard procedure. Here's the name issue for the plat and for the private streets. So we are asking you to make a determination, give us feedback, give the council direction, your recommendation for the naming. And so I guess I would ask you to fill in the blanks there.
okay, so, well, you're done, or should we start with that one?
That's-
Let's start filling this particular point, the resolution of the names. Let's start with, I can see Randy's all excited about it, so.
I'm comfortable. I'm comfortable generally with the names that the developers proposed, and the the change in the ordinance that would restrict the scope of the area that's included in the naming, I think makes a lot of sense. So.
Okay. Hello, Ramsey.
I agree with Randy.
Mike Slavish.
I agree as well, Mayor.
Wow, Mike. And let's see. Now, Chris is, well, let's go with John and then Chris.
I concur with Randy. I think he said it well.
Now, Chris, not just waving, and let's hear about that. some interesting names. Okay, well, we would want to make sure that the fire department and the emergency people are okay, right?
Yeah.
So let's just make sure that the emergency people are okay. So you can see the plan commission is happy here. So.
And we did communicate with our police chief in early December, our fire chief and our EMS chief. None of them raised any major concerns. At that point, our staff was putting the Red Tail Ridge items on the agenda as acre farm because we were not prepared to make a recommendation regarding the development name or the street names until we had flagged it for the 3 chiefs. I think the reason that there's a little bit of
Hesitation.
well, it's more like it's not fully resolved is that we do still have an ordinance, section 811-1, that says that a street name cannot be duplicated by a name that already exists in the county. And that ordinance was put into place at a time when our emergency responders used the phone and they didn't have GPS and other systems in place to be able to pinpoint where an emergency is happening. So it's really outdated. And obviously there's a main street in every community. Names that we've rejected in the past have probably now been replicated 2, 3, or 4 times in other communities in the county. So we do need to update the ordinance, which Mark mentioned he's taking to the Public Safety Committee. And we don't want to 100% say that we want to go forward with these names, because if one of the public safety entities gave a really good reason why we shouldn't, then I think that we would take that into consideration. But at this point, we haven't really heard any major objections from any of the three chiefs.
So should we make it conditional then? That unless we have a,
When is the meeting, Mark?
They're supposed to meet on Thursday.
Okay, so that would happen prior to the common council meeting, which is Wednesday of next
So
week.
that bullet should say, but resolution by the emergency people plus the, but
yeah,
conditional
okay,
on whatever happens with the status
okay,
of that.
okay,
Yep.
yeah, that's fine,
Sure.
so,
Can I ask a question?
yeah.
The street names are one thing, but the plat name is actually a little more important for me right now because of CARPC. And I don't think the plat name is as important as the street names are.
That's
You know,
true.
So if you could approve the plat name and we have to adjust street names, no problem. You know,
Yep.
That's fine.
So does
I would
anybody
agree.
has a problem with the plat name?
No.
Okay. Mike? You like red tail?
I'm fine with it, Mayor.
Okay, okay. And Chris?
Yep.
Yeah, the red is better than green. Well, anyway, I'm just, they're all good. So, okay, so that's fine. So any other things, Chad, which you might want?
We're removing that one bullet from the possible motion. Since we're essentially not dealing with the street names.
Um,
No,
Yes,
with
yes.
the development name, it will be red tail going forward. So,
It says with the subdivision as well as the public and private streets.
So maybe strike the subdivision as well as, and just say proposing to give the public and private streets. And then add contingent upon a recommendation by the Public Safety Committee.
What I'm suggesting is Red Tail Ridge is as part of the recommendation, the bullet would read, Red Tail Ridge is an acceptable name for the plat. The names of the streets will be resolved at the final plat or something like that.
Pending a recommendation from the Public Safety Commission.
Recommendation.
Yeah, I think, I like the recommendation because we've already kind of hashed this over.
Hmm.
And I don't want to just leave it hanging like it's not been discussed. More like we're comfortable as long as they are.
okay, so any other questions or comments? I can see that the stormwater, that's a big thing. It's happening. That's in the process, right? Stormwater issues? Okay, so the other is I looked at a lot of those engineering comments. You guys are agreeing with each other, or they will be sorted out?
Yes.
Okay, so do you have any concerns, Mark, Daphne, Abby? If there was to be a motion covering all of these things?
Further concerns?
Okay. So do we, any other questions? And otherwise need a motion?
Bruce will move for approval of the preliminary plat and recommend that the common council approve the preliminary plat contingent upon the bullet points in the staff report with the adjustment of the language discussed regarding the resolution of the names.
Okay.
So
great.
Red Tail Ridge is an acceptable name for the plat. The street names will be resolved at the final plat stage pending input from the Public Safety Committee.
Okay, do we have a second now?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments now? Let's have a vigorous discussion now. So
Hearty discussion.
Already did that.
hearty discussion.
Hardly discussion.
Okay, so it looks like, I know I had, let me go through all my notes here.
I'll just say I like the bird names. I think that's a nice, thank you for kind of pulling that together and stuff. And you're interested in the right kind of housing for that too. I think it's very important.
Where you're saying the family is supportive.
Very happy.
Yeah, good.
So CUSA will be mid-March, TIA mid-April.
Yes, we presented to CARPC at their meeting on the 9th,
Okay,
the same night we had CDA.
okay,
And that was the public hearing. The commissioners had some questions, which the team responded to, and now goes back to CARPC on March something. Is it the 9th?
That's the same.
Yes, second Thursday.
So I actually heard very good comments how the Middleton made the presentation. So some people who were there at that meeting, so great
And
job.
our team is meeting with the CARPC staff on February 28th on a number of regional planning issues, but we are going to check in with them at that point and find out if they had any other comments from their commissioners or anything else that we need in advance of that meeting.
So there's from the Public Works Committee on page 15 of 65, there were 5 points, name of the plat. We addressed that, resolution of the staff, review recommendations. And then the approval of the urban, that's in the process. Approval of the comprehensive stormwater management plan for the subdivision, that's in the process. How is that?
That's going to the Water Resources Management Commission tomorrow night.
Changes to address the recommendation of any of TIA, that's already in the process. So, well, I don't see any other issues here, so if we are addressing all various committee issues, right, Mark?
Yep.
Okay. Well, if there's no other questions or comments, all those in favor of the motion to approve the preliminary plat, and we can call it Red Trail Ridge between High Road and Pheasant Branch Road with all the 6 bullet points in the staff memo. And then with suggested changes, say aye.
I,
Anyone opposed? Well, motion passes. It looks like that's the last item on the agenda unless somebody, well, had
Just this is a mechanical concern, not about an item on the agenda, but I know, Mark, you're working hard. I have a very difficult time when we keep getting stuff added to the packet the day of the meeting. Because I'm crashing home at almost 6 o'clock and suddenly I see all these emails. I've added this to the package, these things have been done. And could we kind of set some kind of time limit by on which we don't keep adding, because it makes it really hard for me to go and scramble on that.
Totally understand where you're coming from. The packet was we added to it yesterday, actually,
Okay.
but your point is well taken. It was still after you had started reviewing.
Yeah.
And so what we tried to do is flag what we had changed in the packet. We had received 4 comments from the public. And I guess that's a general question for you. I mean, I think, how do you want to receive comments in the future? I guess when you get an email, you might get those individually or as a commission.
Well, no, I don't mind the flagging, but by the time I see the flagging, there's no time to sit back and go look at the things that were flagged. And go back.
Right. We did the best we could in this situation. I mean, I guess I could have tried to get it to you a couple hours earlier yesterday, but it sounds like you didn't see it till today.
Oh, yeah, I didn't.
Yeah, I think I uploaded it at 5:30 yesterday.
okay, so next time, 1:30. Yes,
And if we get public comment, we'll just have to at some point say.
Yes.
we'll
Yeah, I mean,
throw
if you
forward
could,
it.
give it like 24, 48 hours, I'll keep looking, but it's still,
Yeah.
by the time I got home even last night, I was just crashing.
But it's your comment we understand and we'll do our best.
Thank you.
Are we able, I know in this case, it wasn't for a public hearing, but I wonder, are we able to set the cutoff date for accepting public comments earlier than
oh,
the day of the hearing?
absolutely. That's
You
what it is.
you have like the amount of time you have to announce public meetings and things.
Mm-hmm.
There's times it would seem like for this, if you're publishing a packet for a meeting and then the packet, is there a point at which it has to be static for the public?
Right. Well, usually we'll accept for a public hearing, if we're having a public hearing on a Tuesday night, we take comments generally until 4:30 that day, which is technically the time that our office closes. But sometimes they will come in even after 4:30 and we are kind of trying to check everything because we don't ever want to miss a public comment that's been submitted as part of a public hearing. But I wonder if it would make our lives easier if we cut it off at noon that day, if we're able to do that.
Yeah. I think that's off, we're talking about mechanics that aren't on the agenda. We'll discuss it amongst ourselves.
We'll have to consult with our city attorney.
Yeah.
But
Let's
there
talk
are
about
communities that will do a cutoff time for accepting written comment.
Excellent.
Yeah, just because I'm working full time,
Yeah.
It's tough. And if I
No, I
don't have the
understand.
time in the night before, just can't always come to do it.
Thank you, John. Good point. Any other concerns? Any stories to tell? Otherwise, well, Happy Valentine to everyone who is here and at home, and let's go for dinner. I need a motion to adjourn.
So me.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
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 Opposed? Well, motion passes. Well, all right. Great job, everyone.
Thanks, Mike Slavish.
Mike,
Yes.
great
Thanks,
job.
everyone.
Thank you, Mike.